Kafka's Rerun banner is coming out very soon, and with the improvements that Dot characters have had since her release, today I want to discuss her banner, her kit, and her current game state to see how much value players can get if they do end up pulling for her. So I want to start with the banner first of all. So her banner is going to be the exact same 4 stars as Dr. Ratio's banner, with Sushang, Natasha, and a hook, which I think overall, they're all like pretty okay options. I do think that with Kafka specifically, Hook does have the most value of these 3, because while Hook isn't the greatest at it compared to Gwenaifen and even Himiko, I would say, Hook still can provide some burn, and that will be beneficial for Kafka if you're running a DOT comp. But there are definitely better options to apply burn than Hook for sure. But yeah, for the other 2, Natasha is just a sustain. She is free, but now we have Link's free as well, who's just a better Natasha overall. And then for Sushang is a pretty decent, break effect kind of DPS character, but doesn't really have that same kind of synergy with Kafka, I feel like, compared to some other characters, especially not compared to Luca, because I think Luca works way better with Kafka. So yeah, compared to Kafka's initial banner, which did have Sampo and Luca on it, this banner is definitely a bit of a downgrade from that, unfortunately. So if you don't already have like other Dot characters to go along with Kafka, being Sampo, Gwenaifen, and Luca mainly, it is going to be rough unless you get, if you're able to pull them by being lucky, or, with the dreams that people have been having about Black Swan working very well with Kafka, but we'll see what happens when we get that official info. So now I want to go into Kafka's kit here. She does have a very solid kit overall. So starting out here, we're going to skip over her basic attack, since that doesn't really have anything crazy on it. For Kafka's skill, she's going to deal lightning damage to a single target and then a smaller amount of damage to adjacent enemies. And if that original target currently has any dots on them, whether it be wind shear, shock, bleed, or burn, then all of those DOTs that they have on them will automatically be triggered at a fraction of their damage, which at level 10 trace is 75%, which is still a pretty solid amount of the damage. So you'll just be doing a bunch of damage to that one enemy if you do put a lot of dots on them, which is why it's very good to run her with, like, as I said, Sampo, Gwenaifen, and Luca, who can put on those dots. I feel Luca doesn't get as much credit, and I definitely do want to properly build him at some point as well, because bleed dot is kind of ridiculous as well. Then for Kafka's ultimate, it'll deal lightning damage to the entire, to all the enemies, and all the enemies get a 100% base chance to be shocked and immediately take damage from the shock DOT, equal to, at talent level 10, or trace level 10, I mean, 100% of the original damage, which is very solid. And this shock here lasts for 2 turns as well, and while they're shocked, the damage multiplier is at level 10 is 290%, which is pretty huge as well. So yeah, this shock is going to do some very solid damage. Plus, if you pair it with other DOTs and then light cones that may improve damage, like Fermata for example, that's going to be a very solid amount of damage you can do. Then for Kafka's talent, so basically after one of her allies uses a basic attack on an enemy, Kafka will launch a follow-up attack and deal some lightning damage to that enemy that has a 100% base chance of providing the exact same shock effect on that enemy as her ultimate, which is extremely nice. And this follow-up attack can only be triggered once per turn for Kafka, so definitely do keep that in mind. This is also very helpful for if you're running her with Topaz in follow-up comps, because compared to some of the other follow-up attacks in this game, this one is relatively consistent, so you'll be getting some good benefit out of it as well if you run her with Topaz. And for Kafka's technique, she'll immediately attack all enemies within a set range on the field, and when she enters battle, she'll deal lightning damage to all of them, and will have a 100% base chance to inflict the same shock effect as her ultimate for 2 turns on every enemy, which is also very solid as well, to just have that shock right off the bat. And then with Kafka's seal in the first turn, you'll be able to detonate that shock DOT as well. Now to go into our major traces here. So for this one right here, Torture, whenever you use the ultimate, it will have, instead of it only receiving damage from the shock from the ultimate or any shock that they might have, it will re-trigger every DOT on them, just like the skill does, which is extremely beneficial because that's just going to boost the damage of your team a bunch if you're running those dot comps. Then for our next one, Plunder, whenever an enemy is defeated while they have the shock effect, Kafka will get 5 energy back, which is very good because the more she ults, the more chances she'll have to apply shock to the entire enemy field. And then her last one, Thorns, the base chance for targets to get shocked by the ultimate or technique or talent is increased by 30%, which because of this, you really don't have to build that much effect hit rate on her. And she also does get some from her traces here. Like she gets 6% here, 8% here, and 4% here. So it's a solid 18%. Like, because I know a lot of the like dot characters, they'll want to run effect hit rate chess pieces, but for Kafka, you don't have to, which is very nice for her. But now I want to focus now on Kafka's current game state, because I do think that she is in a very interesting spot and a very similar spot to Topaz. I feel like I've mentioned it when I covered Topaz, but Kafka does remain the most relevant character for her main team comp, being DOT, and I do think she also is very good on Topaz follow-up comps as well. So for players that do want to run this comp, or if Kafka is the only piece of the comp you're missing, then she is going to be very solid to pull despite how mid I feel like the banner is. I'm not going to say the banner is like awful, but it's also not like super great either. Now, over time since Kafka's come out, DOT has received some very solid buffs. We have gotten Gwynnithan, who has been a very solid character to run with her damage increases and being able to apply burn. We also got the Dot Relic set in 1.5. And then also the addition of Huohuo and Ruan Mei have also helped dot teams out a bunch, because Huohuo with the energy and attack bonus, as well as Ruan Mei with her increased break effect. Well, yeah, her break effect increases, and as well as the weakness break extension from her ultimate, which will allow you to have more procs of dot hit without you having to worry about taking any kind of damage. Now, I will say, when it comes to Kafka and her dot teams, and also the follow-up teams, because you do need Topaz for those, they are not as accessible as your standard hyper carry team, because for those, it's just like you run any kind of DPS. Really, a lot of times you can run any kind of support, although some will be better than others, and then any kind of sustain. Whereas for dot comps, you pretty much, you kind of need Kafka, because she can re-trigger any dots you have. And then you're going to want to have one of those dot characters I mentioned before, being Sampo, Gwynnithan, and Luca, or any other future dot characters that might come out for her. And that does require you to, I would say, put in a bit more investment than some other teams, but it's really not like the worst thing ever, as long as you do have those characters there. Like it will take time to farm them up. Like, believe me, when Kafka, when her first banner was going to come out, it did take me some time to get like some of my Sampo farmed up and everything, and get pre-farmed for Kafka, but I definitely do think that overall the team is still very good, even though it might take a bit more like investment and more like specifically focusing on like a effect hit rate for some of the characters. Not Kafka herself, but like for Sampo, Gwynnithan, and Luca. Well, depending on how you're running Luca at the very least. But the team can still clear all the content in the game. It is still a very solid team. And it's one of those teams that can be buffed with any other dot characters that come out. So Kafka is going to be one of those characters that is going to be relevant for a long time, because she's the only one who can re-trigger those dot effects, and that at the core of her gameplay makes her super valuable, no matter I think how long passes between now and whatever other dot characters come out in the future. So yeah, overall Kafka does still have a ton of value, and I think players that are going to pull for her are going to be able to do very well with her. They'll be able to clear all the content in the game, and if the dreams people have been having are true about Black Swan working well with her, then that's just going to give her even more value as well. But yeah, let me know if you all are pulling for Kafka in the comments down below. I know people are probably a bit more tempted to pull for her, since we don't have to pull for Dr. Ratio at all, since we are getting him for free, which is super nice. But with that, everyone, I'm going to end it off here. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed and haven't already, definitely be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell. But with that, I will see you all next time.